Hello and thanks for joining us here on Middle East Matters. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Biahi. Coming up in this week's show. A last-ditch bid to avert an impasse. Israel's two largest political parties meet to discuss the viability of forming a unity government. Ramping up security in the capital, Egyptian forces are out in full effect following a rare spate of anti-government protest. Plus, courting controversy, Qatar turns down the temperature in the stadiums ahead of the 2022 Football World Cup, but the debate over working conditions is heating up. But first, amid an ongoing deadlock, Israel's two largest political parties are in talks over the possibility of forming a unity government. Well, discussions between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party and blue and white leader Benny Gantz come after elections last week were simply too close to call. Well, as things stand, neither candidate can build a stable parliamentary majority on his own. Meanwhile, failure to form a coalition would mean more political turmoil in Israel, potentially triggering a third general election in less than a year. Next, right groups in Egypt say security forces have stepped up their presence in the capital, Cairo, following an outbreak of anti-government protests. Well, the demonstrations against President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi not only defy a ban on protest, but also mark a rare display of political dissent. Well, hundreds of people were arrested as protests spread to other cities, demonstrators saying they're fed up with government corruption. Naomi Lloyd reports.
A one-off burst of unrest or the beginning of a new wave of protests. One thing's for sure, a significant number of Egyptians have taken to the streets. It's a rare show of dissent since the 2013 ban on all public protest when the army seized power. In Suez, protests continued throughout the weekend. Dozens of demonstrators clashed with security forces on Saturday night, with numerous arrests, many of them shared on social media.
Guys, the police are down there to arrest me. They're in front of my building. They're about to arrest me. The only thing I've done is film a video. So I guess this is goodbye. Goodbye.
On Sunday, human rights lawyer Mahinor Al-Masri was arrested in Cairo as she walked out of the state security prosecutor's office. She'd been representing protesters detained in Tahrir Square. Hundreds of people had gathered in central Cairo, calling for President Sisi to step down. The protests have been triggered by exiled Egyptian businessman Mohammed Ali, once a regime insider whose social media videos have gone viral. In them, he accuses Sisi of corruption and squandering taxpayer money.
The regime is at the heart of the corruption, and it's the regime that makes us corrupt. But there's a difference. The person in charge is untouchable because he has made sure that everything he touches is legal. So for him, he has the right to have as many mansions built as he wants, to drive luxury cars and travel in private jets because he's the head of state.
Sisi has dismissed the allegations as lies and slander, but they appear to have struck a chord with many Egyptians who are increasingly disaffected by IMF austerity measures imposed by the government.
Now, Qatar has courted controversy since the announcement that it would be staging the 2022 Football World Cup. Soaring temperatures first sparked concerns over its suitability to host the high-profile competition. Now the debate on the dire working conditions for those building Qatar's innovative football stadiums is heating up. France 24's Fraser Jackson has this report.
This futuristic shell-shaped building is the first stadium to be completed for the 2022 Football World Cup in Qatar. Inaugurated just a few months ago, the venue boasts a feature to combat the searing desert heat: air conditioning.
41.6. You notice it's dropping already. And welcome to our microclimate bubble, which is Al Wakra Stadium.
Along the length of the stadium, dozens of vents blow cool air onto the pitch.
17.5 degrees C.
Average summer temperatures in Qatar can reach the mid-40s. So for the first time, the World Cup has been moved to the end of the year, Even then, temperatures can surpass 30 degrees Celsius. The idea of staging the World Cup in the desert has been contentious since its announcement. The organising committee insists they are doing everything possible to limit the impact on the environment, and it's a message they're determined to underline. In this rooftop laboratory, they're testing 36 different types of grass. The aim is to find the grass that stays the greenest and also consumes the least amount of feed. But the most important factor in this desert nation is water.
The usage of the water is more than 20% less than our normal pitch grass.
Qatar is also building the world's first fully reusable stadium. Made up of dozens of shipping containers, it can be torn down and used elsewhere. But there is a dark side. Mistreatment of hundreds of thousands of immigrant workers has been criticized by unions and human rights groups. Reports of squalid conditions and months of unpaid wages have cast a dark shadow over the World Cup. With the world watching, Qatar is trying to improve its image. This camp is one of the new facilities aimed at improving working conditions. Workers on the site take a break between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. to escape the hottest part of the day. Most come from Africa, India, Bangladesh and Nepal. They work 11-hour days, 6 days a week, and only return home once a year. This worker tells us he makes around €315 a month, but that conditions here are better than where he came from.
Way back home, you not get free transport, free accommodation, free food. You not get that. But here you get all that, so I think it's quite different from way back home.
Experts agree that conditions have improved in recent years, but of the hundreds of thousands of workers, only around 40,000 are housed inside these sites. We heard of another camp just a few kilometers away where conditions are not so agreeable. We see several people around the area, but before we have time to ask anybody any questions, we are stopped by the police. They let us go on the promise that we won't return here to film anymore. As we were being led away, it was obvious that the systematic mistreatment of workers is still a sensitive subject.
We know that a lot of people are dying, but we don't know how many are dying and we don't know why they're dying. And that's because the Qatari authorities just refuse to release the data. They also don't do autopsies. So bodies are simply put in coffins and sent home to their families. The families never find out why they died. They do not get compensation unless there's an accident.
FIFA has admitted that workers' rights have been violated. The Qatari authorities claim that 11 construction workers have died within the last year, but this figure is disputed. In a recent documentary by German broadcaster WDR, the Nepalese government said 111 of their citizens had died this year alone. The same documentary claimed over 1,400 workers have died since construction began. And this shocking figure could get worse. A report published by the International Trades Union Confederation estimated that 4,000 could die before the start of the World Cup in 2022.
We take you next to the Zaatari refugee camp in Jordan, which for many Syrians fleeing conflict represents some stability and safety. Facilities at the camp, like health and education, have improved. Now in a bid to boost sports there, Jordan's Prince Ali has joined forces with charities to build brand new football pitches. France 24's Mark Owen and Zora Ben Maloud report.
No sooner are they back from school than Hanan and Layla are getting ready for the thing that they love the most, playing football. In fact, these two little Syrian girls live and breathe the beautiful game. They've lived in the Zaatari refugee camp for the past 5 years. In that time, school teachers have also become football coaches. So warm-up starts for the 50 or so girls in the football training group here with the bare minimum of facilities. Some girls, as you can see, don't even have the correct footwear for the surface. Some don't even have footwear at all. But that doesn't stop them playing to win, smiling, laughing, and enjoying every kick of the ball.
We come here twice a week and we spend our time waiting for this moment to come. When we're on the pitch, we're happy.
Arsenal FC in London launchpad with choice for the global version of what's happening at Zaatari. It's all the idea of Prince Ali of Jordan.
The Zaatari refugee camp. When the refugees first came in, and we were talking with the UNHCR and the other organizations, and you had all these youth, kids, I mean, the focus was on the basic supplies, be it food, medicine, and so on. But they had nothing to do. And these are communities, these are kids who are traumatized. And we started with a dirt pitch and brought the children in so that they have something, obviously to do, to learn teamwork.
Zatari. 80,000 people live here. It's the biggest refugee camp in the Middle East by far. Half of the people here are children. 20% of them are under the age of 5. Amid all the challenges that refugee life presents, these 2 little girls are taking strength and confidence through sport. But sometimes they look at other things and they dream.
Life here is better because there's no war, no shelling. Here I have my friends, my mother, my sisters. But I still cannot see my aunts, nor one of my sisters back there. When Bashar al-Assad leaves power and the war ends, I can return to Syria.
With the rose in hand, a smile on their faces and football boots still on their feet, the girls walk on and dream one day of playing at their real home.
And finally for you, there's growing anticipation amongst cartoon lovers in Egypt as the country gears up to release its very first animated film. The Knight and the Princess, premiering at the 3rd El Gouna Film Festival this month, invites cinema-goers on a rather exciting journey. Well, Egypt's Medhat Saleh plays the role of the young adventurer Mohammed El-Qassim, who brings the screen alive, overcoming adversity and eventually falling in love. Well, if you can't get to El Gouna this time, not to worry. The Knight and the Princess will be released into cinemas as of October. Well, we leave you with those images, and thanks very much for watching this edition of Middle East Matters.
From North America to the southern tip of Patagonia, join us for a look at the latest political, economic, cultural and social news from the Americas.
Inside the Americas, presented by Jeannie Godula on France 24 and France24.com.